So in this video I'm going to talk about Deontay Wilder versus Alexander Povetkin, and I'm going to kind of phrase it with like a tactics kind of viewpoint, or a keys to victory, however you want to phrase it. Basically I'm going to put myself in the position as if I was the corner man or the trainer for both fighters, and I'm going to say the advice that I would give to both fighters going into the fight as to how they should approach it, what sort of tactics they should look to implement, how they should look to give themselves the best chance of being victorious. So I'm not necessarily going to come to a prediction or a final conclusion as to who's going to win in this one. This is just discussing how I think the fight should break down. I'm not saying how it will break down. I'm saying how it should break down if, you know, if I see it the same way as their respective trainers, which I may or may not do. I'll do a prediction video next week in advance of the fight itself, and unfortunately I picked a rather terrible week to book a holiday, so I'm actually away that week and probably won't be able to do a post-fight video live, but we will cover it when I'm back, I'm sure. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's talk about Povetkin versus Wilder, and let me start with Wilder, and let me say the advice I would give Deontay Wilder, the tactics I would ask him to implement if I was his trainer, if I was his cornerman. And the other thing I should say is I've got no delusions of grandeur here. I'm sure the people in his corner, Mark Brayland or whoever it's going to be, are far better, you know, in a position to give that advice to myself. So I'll just give him my 2 pence worth for what it is worth. But here we are. So if I'm looking at Deontay Wilder and saying his keys to victory, the first is range. He's a bigger man in an era of giant heavyweights. Povetkin's very small for heavyweight. He's shorter. He's got that sort of stocky build, but he's a smaller guy. And Wilder will be best served to keep this fight at range. Picture Povetkin versus Vladimir Klitschko. That is the absolute blueprint of how to beat Alexander Povetkin. Jab and grab. That sort of technique keeps him from being dangerous. It keeps him from setting his feet. It keeps him from getting his work off. And Deontay Wilder should be watching that Klitschko fight over and over and over again, because Povetkin is a very dangerous fighter, and Povetkin was completely closed down in that fight to the point that he had no spells of being effective and never won a single round. Now, I know people criticise Vladimir Klitschko and said he was unsportsmanlike, but this is a results-based business, and Vladimir Klitschko sure got the result that night. He won every round on my card. So I think Deontay Wilder would do well to look at that fight. He'd also do well to look at the fight against Mariusz Wach. And even though Povetkin beat Mariusz Wach handily in the end, I thought in the early rounds before Wach started to tire, he actually caused Povetkin some issues when he was able to keep the fight at range and when he was able to get the jab going. So I think that's key for Deontay Wilder. Keep the fight at range. The way he's going to keep it at range is by the jab and by movement. You know, those two are absolutely key. I'm not looking to see Deontay Wilder necessarily setting his feet and looking to throw huge haymakers to end the fight in round 1. You know, Deontay Wilder's got very, very good power, but Alexander Povetkin's got a good chin. He's solid technically. He's not going to be an easy guy to knock out. I think Wilder should focus on winning the rounds rather than trying to land a Hail Mary punch in round 1. I think the key for him is the jab. Doubling up the jab, jabs to the chest, maybe head to the body. You know, you're really sort of mixing up that jab. Get the jab established, get the movement, have Povetkin chasing him, coming up short and missing. You know, that's for me what I'd like to see Wilder do. And I think that's where he is going to be at his most effective. Because I think if the fight gets up close, if Povetkin's able to get on Wilder's chest, if Povetkin's able to bring the fight into the pocket, I think Povetkin's got real advantages. Whereas at range, Wilder's going to be the man here. Povetkin's not going to be able to jab with him from 6 foot away, because Wilder's just too big, he's got too much ring coverage. So establishing that jab from round 1, vital. If we don't see that from Wilder, he's lost the fight in my eyes. We need to see him moving. The key piece of form for Deontay Wilder, he's seen the blueprint on how to beat Povetkin. You know, he's seen what Klitschko was able to do. What he needs to do is put in a performance like he put in against Bermane Stiverne. Back foot, range, movement. You know, if he can do that, if he can put in a Stiverne performance with some improvements with the experience he's gained since, he's going to cause problems for Alexander Povetkin. And that's what I would be advising him to do if I was on Deontay Wilder's corner. Let me give you a few other things I'd be advising Deontay Wilder to do. Number one, Deontay Wilder is viewed by many as a very predictable fighter because he likes to fight with a straight 1-2. He likes to use the jab and set up the big right cross, which is his knockout punch. But he's actually shown more recently some other sides to his game. In the Johan Depar fight, he started throwing an uppercut. He started fighting in the pocket. He started using his size to try and maul the opponent. In the Eric Molina fight, we saw him very effective with a check left hook. He's starting, as he gets experience, to become a more well-rounded fighter and to increase in versatility. Now, my recommendation for Wilder would be one of those weapons is going to be very effective in that fight. The check left hook. You know, Povetkin's going to be expecting punches, straight punches down the pipe all night. That check left hook is a real weapon. I believe Klitschko was able to have real effect with that against Povetkin, and there was a few times Povetkin didn't see it coming and was knocked down with that. Yeah, I would like to see Wilder throwing that check left hook from range, mixing it in with his jab. What I would not like to see him doing is what he was doing against Depar, where he was getting up close and trying to rough and tough Depar and maul him. You know, that's what he's got to avoid doing, because that's where Povetkin's at his dangerous, when he can bridge that range. So, yeah, there we are. The other thing, defensively, I've said it 20 times on my channel, no harm in saying it again. Wilder does this thing where he backs up, straight lines, hands in the air. You know, Povetkin throws a jab, Wilder steps back, goes back to the ropes, and to emphasise that Povetkin's missed the jab, he raises his arms. And he kind of almost does, as I describe it, like if you're playing dodgeball and you see opponents like wildly dodging a ball and going like, you know, whoa, like to get out of the way. That's what he does. That's what he does to avoid the jab. He's got to not do that. He's got to keep his defensive construct. He's got to keep his hands high, chin down, and move laterally, right? No backing up in straight lines. No head just upright with his chin in the air. No hands up there. Defensive construct, chin down, basics, and lateral movement. That's going to be so key. That's my keys to victory with Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder can keep the reins in this fight. If he can get the jab working and keep the reins, he's got a very good chance of winning. If you combine that with keeping a tight defensive construct, not keeping his chin up in the air, not backing up in straight lines, you could make a case for him to be the favourite in the fight. Some of his offensive weapons are real weapons. You know, that check left hook, I'd like to see him using it. The jab, he's got to use that constantly. And those are the key to victories for Deontay Wilder. So, to summarise, it's all about the range. If they're fighting at long range, Deontay Wilder's the favourite. In the pocket, Povetkin's the favourite. So he's got to keep the reins. To do that, he's got to use the movement. He's got to use the jab. He's got to use that check left hook. And when it gets tough, chin down, hands up, no straight lines, no chin in the air, none of this, hands up. That's the keys to victory for Deontay Wilder. Now let me give you the keys to victory for Alexander Povetkin. For me, Povetkin has got to improve from his performance against Vladimir Klitschko. What he's got to do is avoid standing at the ends of Wilder's punches. You know, he can't be ponderous on the outside and work out a long way of getting in. He can't just stand there and try and trade jabs with Wilder, because Wilder's too big and too long. What Povetkin has got to do, in my eyes, in my humble opinion, is close down the gap. As much as I was saying Deontay Wilder needs to extend the range, Povetkin needs to decrease the range, and it's absolutely key and pivotal for him to have success in this fight. So, how's he best to do that? Well, I think the key for Povetkin here is going to also be the sort of well-timed double jab. I think he's got to pick a spot. He's got to either get under the Wilder jab, he's got to slip a punch, he's got to take one to get inside. I don't know how he's going to do it. Any one of those combinations, but he's got to find himself able to take a step forward, come under the jab. I think the key for him is the double jab to the chest. As I've said time and time again, Deontay Wilder backs up in straight lines with his chin in the air. And what he's been able to do so far, because of the sub-elite standard of opponent he's been fighting, is guys have got inside, thrown punches, and because he's so big and he's got ring coverage and he's quite an athlete, he's just able to step back and make them miss, even though his chin's up in the air, even though his guard's not in the right place. Simply, I've been screaming at all of his opponents to throw the double jab, because they throw a jab and Wilder misses. What Povetkin's got to do is throw the jab, even if it misses, even if Wilder does his dodgeball thing, follow it up instantly with another jab. And then, once you've caught him with the jab, then you mix it up with the right hand. You go right hook to the body, you go overhand right, you bring it up the middle for an uppercut. You know, that's the key to me. Back Deontay Wilder up with double jab, get his backs to touch the ropes, hurt him with that jab, and then bring in your power punch. Bring in your power punch after you've troubled him with the jab. Bring in your power punch after you've positioned him up to the ropes and he can't step back further. You know, that's going to be so key. That's what I want to see Povetkin doing. Duck under the jab, double jab to the chest, big overhand right. Or, you know, slip a while the jab, come in with the double jab and then right to the body. Something like that. I think that's going to serve Povetkin really, really well in this fight. The other thing Povetkin needs to do is have more strings to his bow when he actually gets to that inside. You know, whilst Vladimir Klitschko was very effective and possibly unsportsmanlike in closing Povetkin down, Povetkin needs to have more strings to his arsenal when he's on the inside. Wilder, he's not as experienced or as strong as Klitschko in my eyes, but he's still a very big man. He's very athletic, and he can lean on you, he can hold you, and he is going to have a substantial advantage in size over Povetkin. So what Povetkin's got to do is to ensure he's not held like he was held in that Klitschko fight. So the key for me is some sort of strategy and some sort of versatility once he gets inside the pocket. I was really disappointed with Povetkin in the fact that he only had one plan against Vladimir Klitschko, and when that plan failed, you know, his game was over. So what I want to see Povetkin doing once he does get on the inside, let's say, I mean, when I was talking about the double jab, overhand right, that's when he's positioning Wilder up against the ropes. He doubles jabs him to put him up to the ropes, then he catches him when, you know, Wilder can't step back further. But now let's say we're in the centre of the ring. Let's say Wilder throws a lazy jab and Povetkin slips it, and we're in the centre of the ring. What do I want to see Alexander Povetkin doing? I don't just want to see him coming up close to Wilder and allowing Wilder to hold him. I want to see him maybe switching to the left or switching to the right, you know, kind of pivoting round. So if Wilder's directly in front of him, Povetkin switches to an angle so he's harder to hold and then throws a double hook. I'd like to see Povetkin pull in an uppercut up the middle. You know, what I'm talking about for Povetkin is more versatility. Don't just allow yourself to be held. Don't just have only one plan of action when you're in the centre of the ring and you manage to get inside the pocket. My concern with Povetkin, he spends his whole life in the fights like this, in the fights like Klitschko, trying to get into range. Once you get into that range, you've got to do something. You've got to do something. So, keys to victory for Alexander Povetkin are as follows. Number one, do not just stand at the end of Wilder's punches. Number two, try and back him up to the ropes with the double jab. Number three, after you've landed that double jab, then bring in your power punches, because you know you're a huge hitter. You knocked out Mike Perez with a one shot, to Cam, Manuel Char. You know, these are decent heavyweights. You've got that power. Double jab him, put him back to the ropes, make him less dangerous, make him less mobile, and then you land that big punch. So that's how what you do to get him to the ropes and how to get him there. If you're in the centre of the ring, you know, try and slip the jab, try and get into range, and once you do, have a plan A, B, C, D, and E. What are you going to do when you get him in that position? You know, your game in this fight is to get into range. Once you get into range, do not waste it. Have an uppercut. Have a double hook combination. Have the ability to move to side. Maybe Wilder's straight in front of you and you have quick feet and move to a 45-degree angle and then hook twice. You know, side to side. It's that kind of movement that's absolutely key. It's a fascinating fight because it's two of the top 5 heavyweights in the world. In my opinion, the 3rd and 4th best heavyweight in the world in any order, with completely different class of styles. You've got Wilder, who's 6'6", 6'7", who fights from range. You've got Povetkin, who's 6 foot and fights on the inside and likes to get into a bit of a scrap. And that class of styles is fascinating. Both guys hit extremely hard. Both guys have Olympic medals. You know, it's a really, really good fight, and I'm really looking forward to it. I genuinely can see ways both guys win. So I've given you extended keys to victories to both. In summary, the main key to this fight is the range. It is the range. If they're fighting long and on the outside, Wilder's got the advantage. If they're on the inside and Povetkin knows what to do on the inside and doesn't just succumb to being the small man like he did against Vladimir Klitschko, he's also got a massive advantage. Let me know your thoughts. Who are you picking? Do you agree with what I've said? If you enjoyed this, hit the thumbs up. If you're new, please subscribe.